Welcome learners. Today we are going to consider a very important and interesting topic in taxation, which is actually the characteristics of tax. So characteristic of tax, that is the topic of consideration today. You need to understand that taxes have specific features that distinguish them from other forms of government revenue, such as fees, fines, grants, and donation. So now understanding the characteristics of taxes is very much important in studying taxation. Why? Because these features actually explain the nature, the purpose, and operation of tax systems in Zambia and also other countries. You are going to agree with me that tax itself is defined in different ways. So according to economists by the name of Half Dalton, this one is an economist. So according to Dalton, tax is regarded or defined as a compulsory contribution imposed by a public authority, irrespective of the exact amount of service rendered to the taxpayer. Then we also have Professor Taylor, who also explained that taxes are actually compulsory payments to the government without direct benefits to the taxpayer. Remember that we are talking about the characteristics of taxes. Right, so now what are the characteristics of taxes? The first characteristic of taxes is that taxes are compulsory payments. Now what do we mean when we say that taxes are compulsory payments? So one of the main characteristics of a tax is that it is compulsory. What does it mean? It simply means that individuals, businesses, and organizations, are legally required to pay taxes to the government. So now payment of taxes is not voluntary. That's one thing that you should know, that taxes are not voluntary. Tax payment is not voluntary. It's not something where someone have to do voluntarily. It's something that is legal. So, and the refusal to pay taxes may actually result in penalties. It may result in interest charges or legal action. So this you have to know as the citizen of Zambia and in other country. You have to know that it is your obligation to make sure that you pay taxes, and that the payment of taxes is not voluntary, and the refusal to pay taxes may result in penalties, may result in interest charges or legal actions. So in Zambia, the obligation to pay taxes is actually provided for under laws such as income tax, such as Income Tax Act and Value Added Tax Act. And these are administered by the Zambia Revenue Authority. They are administered by Zambia Revenue Authority. So now you understand that taxpayers who actually fail to submit returns, submit returns or pay taxes, these may be penalized according to the law. More especially for those who are running businesses, if you fail to submit the returns or fail to pay taxes, you can be penalized. That is according to the law. Right, we make a progress. So now, international scholars such as Dalton and Bastable emphasize that taxation involves what? It involves compulsory contributions imposed by the state for public purposes. Right, so now let me just give you an example. Employers are required by law to deduct pay as you earn, that is pay, from employee salaries and remit it to ZRA every month. Like I've already told you that taxes involves compulsory contributions that is imposed by the state for public purposes, and this is an obligation of each and every citizen of a country. If I may to give an example, I'll give you an example of an employee or employer. So employers are required by the law of Zambia to deduct pay as you earn, that is pay, from their employees' salaries. And when those deductions are done, the money must be remitted to ZRA, that is Zambia Revenue Authority, and that has to be done on a monthly basis. So if you are employer and you do not do such things, then it means that you are not meeting your obligations, and that is unlawful. So as an employer, it is your obligation to make sure that you deduct pay as you earn. You deduct payee from the salaries of each and every employee that you have, so that those employees must participate in tax payment. The second characteristic of taxes is that taxes are imposed by government authority. What does this mean? It simply means that taxes can only be imposed by a recognized government or public authority through legislation. So now, in democratic countries, taxes are often introduced and approved through parliament or legislative boards. So in Zambia, in our country, taxes are imposed through acts of parliament such as number 1, Income Tax Act, number 2, Value Added Tax Act, number 3, Customs and Excise Act. Then we also have Property Transfer Tax Act. So these are acts that we have in Zambia, okay, that are there to help us to have an understanding of how to go about this issue of taxes. So taxes are imposed through acts of parliament, and those acts of parliament are the ones that I've just mentioned, like Income Tax Act, Value Added Tax Act, Customs Excise Act, and Property Transfer Tax Act. So these acts, as long as you're a Zambian, you must have a keen interest to know what is found in these acts, so that even as you run a business, whatsoever you do, you must have the understanding of how to go about all these things of taxes, and you get to know what the law says about taxes in our country. It's very important to become knowledgeable in other things so that you are not caught doing the wrong things. So now the government authorizes the Zambia Revenue Authority to collect taxes on its behalf. So ZRA, that's the recognized and authorized institution to collect taxes on behalf of the government. So now, according to Adam Smith, taxation represents citizens' contributions toward, supporting government operations and administration. Okay, so now an example that I can give you is that the annual national budget presented by the Minister of Finance may introduce new tax measures or revise existing tax rates. So this is the responsibility of what? The government through the Ministry of what? Finance. Of which finally whatever is decided, it has to pass through the parliament so that it's made to be what? To be law. Another characteristic of taxes is that taxes are paid for public purposes. So what does this mean? It simply means that revenue collected from taxes is used to finance public goods. Is used to do what? Finance public goods and services that benefit society as a whole. So now you can see that the taxes that we pay are very important, because those taxes that are collected, the revenues collected from taxes, are used to finance public goods as well as public services. And then these public goods and services, they benefit the society as a whole, not as individual or not as an individual taxpayer, but as a whole. So that's where now the significance of tax comes in, because what we remit at the end of the day, it still comes back to us in form of services that we may not even manage to organize in our personal capacity. So now taxes help government provide education. Right now in our country, that's Zambia, we have what we call free education. It is through such policies, it is through tax paying and other sources of revenue that the government of Zambia is able to offer, to provide public services like education free for each and every learner. So all the children who could not afford to go to school, they are back to school, and each and every parent is benefiting from the taxes. Okay? Every learner, every parent is benefiting. Every parent has his or her child in the school. Those are the benefits that we have from the same tax. So we pay taxes. In return, the taxes comes back to ourselves in form of services that are so beneficial, yet maybe in our personal capacity we cannot afford to organize. So taxes help government provide, number one, education. Number two, taxes help government provide healthcare services. We have got public hospitals, and when we go there as patients, services are done for free, apart from maybe few payments that can be done, but services are done for free. Doctors, nurses are being paid by the government. The same money which comes from what? From taxes, and possibly other sources, of course. But the focus here is on taxes. So taxes help government also provide what? Provide roads and bridges that you and I in our personal capacity we cannot afford to construct. The same taxes help government to provide security services. We're talking about of all the forces and all the forces that we have in Zambia. We have Zambia Army, we have got SAF, we've got ZNS, we've got ZAWA that deals with wildlife matters. We also have Zambia Correctional Service. Okay, we have Zambia Police. Zambia Police is a service. Okay, so when you look at all these forces put together, they are put in place so as to provide security to the citizens of this country, and also to provide other services for you and I that we cannot afford on our own. So we can see how important tax paying is. Taxes also help government provide water and sanitation. Without water, we cannot survive. So water is very important. It's the very vital, nutrients, so to say. Our bodies needs water for the cells and other components of the body to operate effectively. In agriculture, water is needed. Sanitation is also very important. We need the environment to be clean, to be okay, to be good and conducive for survival, conducive for learning, conducive for agricultural production, conducive, for settlement. Sanitation is very important. Sanity is very important. The land itself must be good enough for our being, for our settlement. So all these things come through the taxes that we pay to the government. Another important thing that you need to know, that taxes help government provide agricultural support programs. Without agriculture, we may not be in good health, because what makes us to be healthier is the fact that we have enough food, because most of the nutrients we get them from the food that we eat. So food actually is the best medicine that you can ever have, because if you have enough nutrients from the food, you have balanced diet, you end up having strong immune system. When you have strong immune system, it means chances of you getting sick are slim. So by supporting tax payment, it means that you are supporting education, you are supporting healthcare, you are supporting the construction of roads and bridges, you are supporting, security services, you are supporting water and sanitation management, you are also supporting agricultural, programs, which in return brings food in our country. So in Zambia, tax revenue contributes significantly toward national development and government expenditures. So now economists generally agree that taxation is actually necessary for financing public expenditure and promoting national development. This is very important, and I agree with this. So taxes collected by ZRA here in our country, Zambia, finance public universities, finance hospitals, finance roads, infrastructure projects. Okay, yes, so the money collected by ZRA is very beneficial because it helps in financing public universities, hospitals, road infrastructure projects. This is very important. Another characteristic of taxes is that taxes do not provide direct benefits. Taxes do not provide direct benefits. What do we mean? Or what do I mean when I say that taxes do not provide direct benefits? So now you have to understand that this characteristic is one of the important characteristic of taxes. So another important characteristic of taxes is simply the absence of direct or immediate benefits to taxpayers. So now a taxpayer may pay large amount of tax without doing what? Receiving services equal to the amount contributed. That's one thing I should know. So now what I mean is that if you pay tax, you pay about 60,000 as tax, more maybe on that particular month. Don't expect the government to do something for you equivalent to 60,000 as an individual. That's not the case. Your tax may not be equivalent to the benefit that you're going to have at the end of the day. So now Professor Taussing explained that taxation differs from other government charges. Why? Because there are no direct, there are no direct, benefits, that is quid pro quo, between taxes paid and services received. So there's no direct benefits, between taxes paid and services received. That's how Professor Taussing had put it, and this is very much correct. So all taxpayers, they need to have this knowledge. So for example, a citizen paying income tax, a citizen who is paying income tax cannot demand direct government services equal to the exact amount of tax that he or she has paid. You can never do what? Demand direct government services equivalent or equal to the amount of tax that you paid. That's the meaning of this characteristic which says taxes do not provide direct benefits. Let me explain it in this way. A business owner who pays corporate income tax does not receive a special road, does not receive a special hospital, does not receive a special school exclusively for their business, for their own benefits. It doesn't operate like that. Taxes do not work out like that. When schools are built, are for everyone, every citizen. When hospitals are constructed, doctors and nurses are employed, they are employed to save every citizen of the country. Hospitals become public hospitals for everyone, not for that individual possibly who might have paid more tax as compared to others. That's one thing that I like about this. It's an equalizer. Those who have less and those who have more, when they all pay tax to the government, the benefits comes back to them in equal quantity, without segregation. So it's a very important policy that we need to embrace as the citizens of this country. Another characteristic that taxes are paid in monetary form. So what it means that modern taxes are paid in money rather than goods or services. So governments require taxpayers to make payments using legal currency through approved banking and electronic systems. So now in Zambia, taxes are commonly paid electronically through banking platforms and online tax systems. For example, VAT, which is value added tax, pay, and withholding taxes. These are remitted in Zambia kwacha through banks or online payment systems that we have in our country. Another characteristic of taxes that taxes are based on law. What does this mean? It's simply that taxes operate within legal frameworks and regulations. So now government cannot collect, government cannot what? Cannot collect taxes arbitrarily without legal authority. Without what? Legal authority. So now the Zambia tax system, the system of taxing that we have in our country, is governed by several laws and regulations that are now administered by the Zambia Revenue Authority. But those laws are what? Enacted in the parliament. Okay? But then administered by Zambia Revenue Authority, which is the authorized institution to collecting taxes on behalf of the government. Now, how important is this legal basis? Because taxes are based on law. Is this important? The answer is yes. Okay, it's very important because this legal basis is important in the sense that it ensures fairness. Number two, it ensures accountability. Number three, it ensures transparency. Next, it assures taxpayer protection. What else? It assures or it ensures that disputes are also resolved in a peaceful manner. So tax disputes between taxpayers and ZRA are often resolved according to procedures that are established under tax laws and courts of law. So you can see how important that law is that govern taxes. So taxes are based on law, and this is very much important. Another characteristic that taxes are a source of government revenue, like we have already been talking about all these issues. So taxes are the main source of revenue for what? For most government worldwide. It's not just in Zambia, it's throughout the globe. So through taxation, governments generate funds needed to what? To run public institutions and national programs. So research on Zambia's tax administration shows that tax or taxation plays a very significant and major role in doing what? In generating domestic revenue for economic management and development. So major sources of tax revenues are what? So now we have got few major sources of tax revenue in our country, and some of them we've got payee is a major source of tax revenue in our country. We also have value added tax, that's VAT, is another major source of tax revenue. We also have corporate income tax. This is an important source of tax revenue. We also have custom duties. It's another important source of tax revenue. We also have mineral royalty tax, very important as well. Another characteristic is that taxes may be progressive, proportional, or regressive. Now, what does this mean? You need to understand that taxes may be structured differently depending on government policy objectives. So now let's try to understand this. Number one, progressive tax. What does this mean? Okay, it means higher income earners should pay a higher proportion of tax. That's the meaning of progressive tax. For example, payee in Zambia is actually used, or payee uses tax bands. Tax bands, this is where higher salaries attract higher tax rates. In simpler terms, the higher the salaries, the higher the tax rates. That's what progressive tax is or entails. Then we have proportional tax. Proportional tax, this is where everyone pays tax at the same rate regardless of what? Of income. Then we have regressive tax. This is where, or this is a type of tax where low income earners bear a relatively heavier tax burden. Their low incomes are not considered for reason as in what or how much they should pay. So here, under regressive tax, lower income earners, they also bear a relatively heavier tax burden. So you need to understand that here economists use these classifications, that is progressive, proportional, or regressive. So economists use this classification to analyze fairness and equity in taxation systems. Another characteristic of taxes, that taxes help regulate the economy. So now government uses taxation as an economic policy tool, which is very important. So this tax or taxation as economic policy tool, it is used to control inflation. Okay? It is also used to reduce harmful consumption. Government use taxation as an economic policy tool to encourage investments and also to protect local industries, as well as to promote economic growth. So an example that I can give you is exercise duty. Exercise duty is imposed on products such as alcohol, cigarettes, and fuel, partly so as to do what? To regulate consumption and raise revenue. Another characteristic of taxes, that taxes promote redistribution of income. So now taxation can actually reduce income inequality through progressive tax systems and government spending programs. So now, according to public finance scholars, taxation is actually an instrument for promoting social justice and reducing poverty. For example, in Zambia, revenue collected from taxes actually helps fund social programs, help funds education, help funds rural development projects, which benefits low-income communities. So now, in summary or in conclusion, we have so far discovered that taxes are what? Are compulsory payments imposed by the government of the day under the authority of law to raise revenue for public purposes. We have also now discovered that the major characteristics of taxes or tax are compulsion, include compulsion, legal backing, absence of direct benefits. Then we also have what? Public purpose and the government what? Government authorities. These are the characteristics of what? Taxes. Then in our country Zambia, our taxation, we have discovered that it's what? It is administered by the authorized institution called Zambia Revenue Authority, which is abbreviated as ZRA, under various tax laws that support economic development and national welfare. We have also discovered that international scholars such as Adam Smith, Dalton, Bastable, and Tausig have emphasized the compulsory and public nature of taxation. The compulsory and public nature of taxation. Now, these characteristics make taxation an important and essential component of public finance and economic management worldwide.